Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of It Came From the Sump. This time around, when we're doing our little battle reports, we're doing a little bit differently for our campaign right now. We are doing a It Came From the Sump mini campaign, and we're doing this for round number 7, turn 7 of our Sector 7 Turf War. So here is the current situation of Sector 7 between the different gangs that are fighting it out for this current round. All the black territories controlled by the Gene Stealer cults, blue territories by House Cawdor, red territories by Orlok, green Van Saar, yellow is Delak, orange is Goliath, purple is Escher, brown is Chaos Cultists. We have the one precinct house that is controlled by Precinct 13, which is the Enforcers, and finally we got the territory controlled by that maroon color by Section 8. And as you can see here, all the territories are pretty much, the leaders right now in territories are like the House Cawdor, my gang, the Jury, as well as the red faction of the Gene Stealer cults as well. And then followed really closely by House Van Saar. House Van Saar has slowly been building up the ranks as time has been going on. And as you can see here, we have our gangs. Our gang leaders are spread out to tell you exactly who's going to be fighting who in the round turn number 7. So what we're doing is something a little bit different. What we're doing this time around is because since the Book of Ruin came out, the Book of Ruin is actually giving us quite a bit of really cool looking multiplayer scenarios where you could have 2, 3 or higher players inside of a scenario. So because that, we're going to do that for the next 3 battle reports for turn number 7. The first group will be fighting it out between the Jury of House Cawdor versus 911 House Van Saar versus Section 8 of the Venators versus Precinct 13 of the Palanite Enforcers. The next battle report after that will be fought between House Delak, the Sleeping Dogs, the Killjoys of House Escher, as well as Red Faction Gene Stealer Cults. And the next battle report after that will be fought between the People Eaters, the Chaos Cultists, versus the Pelagos Land Heathens of House Goliath and the Iron Sights of House Orlok. So that's what we'll be doing for this one. So we'll be doing 3 battle reports this turn because they'll all be multiple-player scenarios. For now, let's go and talk about who's exactly in lead of our campaign. First of all, for turn number 7 in the lead, using reputation points, we have Red Faction with 29 points, followed by the Jury of House Cawdor. Those guys have 26 points. Followed in third place by the Iron Sights of House Orlok. Those guys have 25 points. In fourth place is Section 8. Those guys have 24 reputation points. In fifth place, the Pelagos Slam Kings. Those guys have 24 points. In sixth place is House Van Saar, which is the 911. They have 23 points. Seventh place is Precinct 13 of the Palanite Enforcers. Eighth place is the Killjoys of House Escher with 21 points. 9th place is the Sleeping Dogs of House Delak with 16 points. And in 10th place right now is the People Eaters with 15 reputation points as well. And so that pretty much makes up turn number 7 for our Sector 7 Turf War. So with that update over with the turn number 7 campaign updates, let's go and talk about the battle report. Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of It Came From the Sump. So this is round 7 of our Necromunda Underhive Wars campaign for Sector 7, and in this round we kind of changed it up a little bit and did with a little mini-series It Came From the Sump, which is a series of horror-themed scenarios that we'll be playing for all of our different gangs for this round of the campaign. The latest book of Necromunda expansion, the Book of Ruin, just came out, and so because of that, there's a lot of interesting multiplayer scenarios that are available in that one. And so because of that, we're going to be using nothing but multiplayer scenarios for this round of Necromunda. And this is the very first of these episodes of It Came From the Sump. This one is a meat scenario, as you can see from the previous title page. Now on this one, it is a 4-way battle that is fought between Sister Serial, Warlord Ace, Dark Lord Mac, as well as myself. It is a 4-player scenario where basically we're going to try to survive a swarm of zombies. We'll be put right in the middle of the table. We'll have to fight wave after wave of flesh-eating cannibals and try to survive as long as we can. So this is a 4-way battle that's fought between Precinct 13 of the Palanite Enforcers, 911 of House Van Saar, Section 8 of the Venators, and the Jury of Cawdor. So we're looking forward for this one. This one's going to be a really interesting scenario. So we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. And what you'll notice about the pictures that there's only a couple of fighters for each gang on this one because you can only have a maximum of D3 fighters per gang for this scenario. So we're going to play some background music, let those run through the list, and we'll be right back with the scenario rules. Alright, so the scenario rules for this one is meat. That's the name of the scenario on this one. Pretty much what you're doing, you're fighting on a 4x4 table, and each of the crews get D3 randomly selected fighters from each gang. Once you have your fighters figured out, what you do is you deploy all the players, must deploy all their crews within 12 inches of the center of the battlefield, and then of course players take turn deploying 3 times as many ghouls within 6 inches of the table edge as well. The ghouls in this one are be using to represent the flesh-eating cannibals that we gotta deal with, the crazed cannibals as they're called. Now what ends up happening as the game continues, in the start of every single end phase, the players take turns deploying D3 plus 3 cannibals within 6 inches of the table edge to represent the fact that more and more of these crazed cannibals are charging into the middle of the battlefield. The battle lasts 9 rounds, or if there's only one gang left on the battlefield as well, whatever one happens first. The victory conditions for this one, the last gang standing, or whichever gang took out the most enemy cannibals out of actions, is the winner. For the rewards on this one, for experience, each participant in the battle receives +1 experience points, and plus any fighters that manage to survive all 9 rounds or to the very end of the scenario also earns D3 additional experience points. For reputation, any gang that has fighters left on the table by the time the game ends earn D3 reputation as well. And for the territory on this one, whoever is the last gang standing, whoever wins this one, takes 1 piece of territory from each of the rival gangs that got defeated in this scenario as well. So you can build up a lot of territory really quickly with the meat scenario. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, with the scenario rules over with, let's go on and talk about the battle plan for this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. We're playing on a 4x4 table, and as you can see in the photo, all the ghouls are represented by the crazed cannibals are already on the outside perimeter of the battlefield. Also right smack dab in the middle as well are the 3 gangs. We have Venators on the left, Saar in the center, Precinct 13 on the far right hand side. On the very far side of the fuel tank tower, you really can't see him, is my one fighter. And this one is going to be kind of difficult for me to win this one, especially because I only got 1 fighter, and I ended up actually getting my leader Riptor. My leader is the one who's actually representing my gang on this one. While the Venators have 3 fighters, Precinct 13 has 3 fighters, and Saar has 2 fighters. There is no real plan for this one because the goal is just to survive as long as possible. So I'm probably going to be doing a lot of running and gunning to try to survive as best I can as well. And I'm pretty sure that's what my friends are planning on doing with theirs as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about the deployment real quick. Alright, so starting out with deployment for Section 8 of the Venators, we have 3 fighters. Up on the top there, that is Hacksaw Harry. He is a brand new hunter who's equipped with mesh armor, a chainsword, as well as a plasma pistol. Right in front of him is Red Harvest, who is a hunt champion. He's armed with a long rifle, he's packing a maul, as well as wearing mesh armor. He's got the fast shot and clamber skill, which is really good for him because there's a lot of 3-dimensional terrain on this one for him to try to climb out of harm's way. And then lastly, right next on the left-hand side, that is the Pig Killer. He's a hunter who's armed with mesh armor. He's got a shotgun with slug, scatter, and executioner rounds. He's also packing a stub gun with dum-dum bullets. And that pretty much makes a deployment for Section 8 on this one. In the center of the table are 2 members of the Van Saar for 9/11. On the left-hand side, that is Tugs. He is a ganger who's got a body glove, mesh armor, a last carbine, last pistol. He's got a respirator as well as choke gas grenades. And right next on the right-hand side, that is Soldier. He's also a ganger who's got a body glove, mesh armor. He's got a last carbine, last pistol, respirator, as well as choke gas grenades as well. And that makes up Warlord Ace's 2 fighters for this scenario. On the right-hand side of that fuel tank tower is the 3 members of Precinct 13 for Sister Serial. Sister Serial has Judge Drake, a Palanite Sergeant who's packing mesh armor, an armored undersuit. He's got a maul, a suspensor, as well as a heavy stubber. That heavy stubber is equipped with the suspensor. And he's also got the Got Your 6 ability, which could prove to be very helpful considering that we're fighting hand-to-hand combat ghouls for the most part. Next to him on the left-hand side, that is Judge Darko, who is a Palanite Patrolman. He's got mesh armor, a maul. He's got an armored suit as well as an Enforcer bolt gun with penetrating rounds. And then right next to him on the right hand side, that is a subjugated patrolman named Judge Knock. He's got a layered flak armored undersuit sniper rifle and a stub gun with dum-dum bullets. And that makes up Sister Serial's fire team for this one. And lastly, in the top of the battlefield is my lone warrior from the jury. That is my leader, Riptor. He is the one who was randomly selected to participate in this scenario. He's got mesh armor. He's also got a master-crafted bolt gun with an attached grenade launcher. He's packing a reclaimed auto pistol, a chain sword, a drop rig, a cult icon. He's got the commanding presence as well as the mentor skills. And unfortunately for me, my 2 skills aren't going to do much of anything for me because he's all by him as lonesome on this one. So it's going to be extremely challenging. So with the deployment for the gangs done, let's go talk about the deployment for the crazed cannibals real quick. So there are 27 crazed cannibals on this battlefield in the initial turn. This is on the bottom of the screen. As you can see there, we got 8 cannibals spread out in kind of like a line formation within 6 inches of the deployment table. On the far right hand side, next to those towers and walkways, is another 8 cannibals getting ready to flank the back of the Precinct 13. On the top of the table, right behind Riptor, my gang leader, there are 7 more ghouls located there in a line formation, which is terrifying because I only got 1 leader. He's got 7 crazed cannibals he's got to deal with. And on the left-hand side of the battlefield is another 7 ghouls as well, and they're right behind the Section 8 Venators. And that pretty much makes the deployment for the Crazed Cannibals. And the Crazed Cannibals will be activating at the beginning of each end phase. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, with deployment over with, it's going to go back directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friends and I roll off for initiative to see who will be going first. So turn number 1 goes directly to House Van Saar on this one, so Warlord Ace gets to activate first, and the first thing he does is he sends up Soldier. Soldier does actually a double movement up the ladder all the way to the top of the fuel tank tower there, which is actually a pretty smart place for him to be at, because pretty much the only way that people can come to him is pretty much one at a time, so that way they can climb the ladder and get to him, which is a good kind of bottleneck type situation to make sure that his fighter survives. So Soldier makes it all the way to the top of the fuel tower. Up next is my friend Dark Lord Mac. He activates next. He does a group activation with Red Harvest as well as Hacksaw Harry. Both those guys just do a simple movement over to the left-hand side next to that pillar next to the walkway to start facing off the left-hand side. And both those characters also open fire with their hunting rifle, long rifle for Red Harvest, as well as a plasma pistol for Hacksaw Harry. In the end, I believe Red Harvest only managed to pin one of the ghouls, the one of the ghouls lays face up. He does manage to hit him, but is unable to wound him, unfortunately. And the reason why is because all the crazed cannibals have toughness 4, which is really, really scary as well. They have strength 3 in close combat, but still at the same time pretty dangerous. However, Hacksaw Harry managed to put a serious injury on one of the ghouls as well, so he goes crashing face down, and he starts bleeding out on the ground as well. And the next target that Dark Lord Mag decides to activate with Red Harvest, because he's got the fast shot ability, which means he can shoot twice if he wants to. After shooting one of the ghouls, because that was the closest target to him, the next closest target, that is an enemy fighter anyways, is Tugs, which is across the battlefield. And it also missed the very first casualty of the scenario as well. Tugs gets hit dead center with the Hunt long rifle and actually goes right out of action. He actually suffers an out cold result. So because of that, Tugs goes immediately out of the battle report and will not be able to participate for the rest of the battle. Which is pretty bad for my buddy Warlord Ace, because now he only has 1 fighter left on the battlefield as well. So I get to go next, and so as you can see in this photo, I decided to do a double action of movement for Riptor, who used the ladder to climb to the top of the Gun March Shanty right in the top of the center there. This is a good position for him to be at. It gives him a couple of options in order to escape. I can run along the wall, that walkway there, to hit down to the top of the walls of the fuel tower if I need to. At the same time, I can also take that walkway to the right-hand side and run around the catwalks that pretty much surrounds the perimeter of the battlefield as well. And at the same time, also gives him a good overwatching position where he can shoot at if he needs to. So that part's kind of nice. The only thing is, though, is that I will not be able to have line of sight, be able to shoot from the rooftop where I'm currently at, because the roof is too big, so I really can't see it. But at the same time, it also prevents my opponents from shooting at me as well, which is always a good thing. So Cicero then goes next. She does a group activation with Judge Drake, who also activates Judge Darko, and both those guys actually spend a basic movement to actually climb the top of the walkway for Judge Drake. At the same time, Judge Darko does a double movement along the walkway to the first floor of the triangular shaped tower right there on the right hand side of the battlefield. For the next basic action for Judge Drake, he opens fire with his heavy stubber. The reason why he's able to do that is because he has a dispenser on it. But unfortunately for him, though, he misses his shots. He doesn't hit my character because he takes aim at my character Riptor. He only got 1 shot off and he missed it. So I got really lucky on that one, because if Riptor got hit, that would have been the end of my participation in this scenario. So for the next activation is the Pig Killer. The Pig Killer actually spends a simple action to move up right next to the tower, right next to Red Harvest, as well as Hacksaw Harry, and then he opens fires with his shotgun using an execution round to aim directly at Judge Drake. And unfortunately for Judge Drake does get hit center of mass with the shotgun. It actually blows him off the top of the tower as well, but it was actually the shotgun that was enough to kill him. Actually put a grievous injury on that character, so because that, he automatically goes to recovery, and he's pretty much done at this point. At the same time, because Judge Drake got taken out of action, Judge Knock has to take a cool check to see if he stands his ground. And unfortunately for Judge Knock, he fails his cool check and he runs back 11 inches towards that triangular tower, taking cover because he doesn't want to get shot at as well because he lost his nerve. And that pretty much makes up all the activations for the fighters on this one. So that takes directly to the end phase for turn number 1, and the crazed cannibals are now activated as well. Judge Knox does manage to pass his recovery, so because of that, he gets his nerve back, getting him +1 to his experience points. That is occurring at the same time. As you can see, this whole huge horde of crazed cannibals start moving along the edge of the battlefield. Pretty much all the crazed cannibals do double movements along the catwalks, heading towards Judge Darko, heading to that triangular shaped building there. At the same time, climbing onto the roof of the garage shanty, which is right there in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. And just like something out of World War Z, crazed cannibals on the other side of the table also start funneling through between the metro tower as well as beneath the catwalk, heading directly towards the fuel tank as well as towards the Section 8 Venators. On the left-hand side of the battlefield as well, as the crazed cannibals start swarming directly towards Red Harvest as well as Hacksaw Harry as well as the Pig Killer as well. A couple of guys start swarming them on the ground level. The other guys start climbing up to the top of the first level of the catwalk. 3 more crazed cannibals do double movements at the top of the Tower of Terror, going to the very first level as well to cut off any escape from that location. Meanwhile, on the top of the table, a huge swarm of crazed cannibals start doing double movements along the climbing up to the top of the catwalk there, so that way there's no escape that way. And a couple of them actually swarm up the ladder, getting right next to Riptor, and they plan on trying to engage him as quick as they possibly can. So Riptor is now currently facing down 2 crazed cannibals by his lonesome. At the same time, 2 more cannibals also climb the top of the gantry walkway there, so that way they can prevent escape from that position. And here's another close-up of Riptor getting ready to be swarmed by 2 crazed cannibals. And finally, on the far right-hand side of the table, as you can see here, that huge wave of crazed cannibals do double movements to climb the top of the catwalk on the left-hand side of the battlefield, so that way they can prevent exit from that way. So my character especially is getting surrounded by all fronts from crazed cannibals, which is absolutely terrifying. So with that being said, that ends the turn number 1 for this battle report. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the end of turn number 1. As you can see, we have, what's his name, Soldier's all by himself on the top of that fuel tower. The rest of us are being swarmed by crazed cannibals who are coming in from the edge of the battlefield, and things are looking very frightening at this point. I feel like I'm in an episode of The Walking Dead, all things being considered. So at the end of turn number 1, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and my friends and I roll for initiative to see who goes first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the Venators manage to get the initiative on this one once again. So because that Dark Lord Matt goes first, he does a group activation again, activating Red Harvest as well as Hacksaw Harry. With Red Harvest, he actually spends a normal, simple action to climb up the top of the first level of the gantry walkway. So then he starts opening fire on the 2 ghouls on the top of the bridge at the same time. While that's occurring, Hacksaw Harry charges directly into one of the ghouls, the one carrying the scythe, because he's going to fight that guy in close combat, because Hacksaw Harry is kitted out to kill in close combat. Needless to say, Hacksaw Harry had no problem taking out that crazed cannibal, putting him directly out of action. He follows through to engage the next ghoul as well to get him on the next round of close combat. At the same time, Red Harvest opens fire twice with his long rifle directly into the 2 ghouls over the top of the walkway, blows them both off of the catwalk, which is kind of cool as well, and also puts out of action results on 2 of them as well, giving him another 2 additional points on top of his combat score. So things are looking pretty good for the Venators at this point. So the next activation goes to me for Riptor, so I do a simple action to move forward 5 inches, so that way he's in the middle of the catwalk there, so that way the ghouls can only come at him one at a time, and I decided to do that because I plan on, kind of breaking contact against the ghouls that are chasing me. So I go about halfway through the walkway there, and I open fire with my bolt gun. And with the rapid fire diamaz, I get 2 shots, which is pretty awesome. I shoot one right off the ledge, which is pretty cool. Could have an out of action result, so netting me a point there. And another one, I also put another out of action result as well. He did pass his initiative test, so he only goes face down onto the top of the gun mart shanty, but he also goes out of action as well, which is pretty awesome. So it kind of buys me some breathing room in order to help my guy escape, because these ghouls are swarming. So Warlord Ace is up next. He decides to activate Soldier. He takes a basic action, aim his last carbine, and another action to open fire with it directly onto some ghouls that are on the top of the catwalks that are heading towards his fuel tank tower. And he also manages to hit 2 of them as well, putting serious injuries on both of them. The first one he causes a serious injury to. He actually hits him, but he doesn't actually wound him with the last carbine. But because he failed his initiative test, he does go crash in the ground and get a serious injury result. At the same time, he also puts a flesh wound on the second one, who also fails his initiative test and crashes to the ground, and gets a serious injury result out of that as well. So that part was pretty neat. So as Cesario goes next, he decides to activate Judge Darko, who spends a basic action to take aim with his bolt gun, getting him +1 to hit, and he opens fire again with his bolt gun directly into the ghouls that are trying to charge at him from across that catwalk there. He hits the first one, puts a serious injury on that character as well, and he hits the second one, who also suffers a serious injury as well, and unfortunately for that ghoul, he fails his initiative test, and he also falls down to the ground as well, and he is out of action right next to Judge Nock there. As you can see, they're kind of hiding there and taking cover. For the next turn, Dark Lord Mac goes next. He decides to activate the Pig Killer. He goes charging directly into one of the ghouls as well and engaging him in close combat. And he manages to kill the Crazed Cannibal at the same time, putting a stub gun with dum-dum rounds directly into his head and blowing his head off. He then follows through to the next ghoul, and that sort of help out Hacksaw Harry deal with that Crazed Cannibal as well. And finally, Judge Knock also takes a basic action to aim his sniper rifle, and he takes another action to open fire with one, managed to knock off another ghoul, causing a serious out-of-action result for that ghoul as well, so netting himself another point for his team as well. So with that last activation, that pretty much ends turn number 2. We go directly to the end phase. So that takes directly to the end phase, and the Crazed Cannibals get to go next, and this photo is taken after all of their activations as well. This is on the near side of the table. As you can see, some more ghouls pop up on the tabletop as well, and they start swarming that triangular-shaped tower, heading directly towards the Precinct 13 fighters who are taking cover there. At the same time, another column of ghouls start heading towards Hacksaw Harry as well as the Pig Killer, and another series of ghouls start making their way towards the ladders heading up to the fuel tower right in the center of the battlefield. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of the battlefield, a huge wave of Crazed Cannibals swarm directly into the Pig Killer as well as into Hacksaw Harry, which is really, really bad. And the reason why is because I think it's like 4 of those Crazed Cannibals managed to pass their charging checks, so because they charge directly into the Pig Killer as well as the Hacksaw Harry and start swarming those guys in attacks. And unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, the Pig Killer as well as Hacksaw Harry just don't have the tolerance to fight that many Crazed Cannibals because they just got swarmed is pretty much what ended up happening. The Pig Killer goes out of action, suffering a humiliating injury, which means he loses 1 point to his leadership as well as to his cool, and Hacksaw Harry he gets an out cold result as well. So just like that, 2 members of Section 8 are now off the table. While this is occurring, more ghouls start swarming the left-hand side of the table, climbing up to the top of the catwalk, getting ready to attack Red Harvest, so that's absolutely terrifying. And more ghouls start swarming the Tower of Terror as well, climbing up to the second level of the catwalk, making their way towards Red Harvest, which is absolutely terrifying to look at. It's like something out of World War Z. It's insane. And finally, on the left-hand side of the battlefield, as well as the top of the screen, as you can see in this photo, a huge wave of Crazed Cannibals are heading directly towards Riptor, which is absolutely terrifying to look at. You can see that. There's a huge conga line of flesh-eating death. It's just making their way across the catwalk, heading towards Riptor as well. And at the same time, they're swarming the other catwalks as well to make sure that they can, try to get them engaged as quickly as possible. It should be noted that at the same time all these Crazed Cannibals are swarming places, we as players take turns moving these ghouls to see where they're going and where they're going to be swarming to next. And something tells you that my friends want my guy to die. I can't take it personally. I can't help but take it kind of personally that way. I mean, look at all the ghouls. They're going after my one fighter. It is absolutely insane, all that craziness that's coming his way. So that part is kind of cool. It's just highly entertaining to see this because you can see this being very cinematic looking, which is kind of cool as well. And that pretty much ends turn number 2. So here's an overhead shot of the entire of the battlefield at the end of turn number 2. As you can see, the Venators are still being swarmed over the left-hand side, and 2 of them have now been eaten alive. The Precinct 13 guys are taking Sanctuary in that triangular-shaped tower. They're being swarmed. At the same time, ghouls are starting to try to climb up the ladder, heading towards 9/11 as well, the top of the fuel tank. And I got a huge tidal wave of flesh-eating monstrosities heading towards my one leader at the top of the screen. And that pretty much ends up turn number 2. So with turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and we roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and I managed to get the initiative on this one, so I get priority. Yay! Which is pretty awesome. So, once again, I have a huge wave of ghouls coming at me, so I have to, think pretty quickly. So I decided to break contact once again, do exactly the same thing I did last turn. So I do a simple action to move him 5 inches directly into the top of the wall of the fuel tank tower, and then I take another action to open fire with my grenade launcher that's attached to my bolt gun. So I figure this is a perfect time to pop it if there's going to ever be a moment to do so. So I open fire with my frag grenade launcher, and it lands right directly in the middle of the huge swarm of ghouls are heading my way. In fact, I think I managed to hit 5 of them when it's all said and done, which is pretty awesome. The only sad part is that frag grenade is only strength 3, and these guys are all toughness 4. So the explosion goes off, and unfortunately I didn't put any ghouls out of action. All I really did is I knocked one ghoul, I put one serious injury on one ghoul, so he goes face down on the ground, and the other 3 get blown off the roof and the catwalk of the little walkway there, and they go plummeting towards the earth as well and hitting the ground and getting serious injuries on all of them. So no out of action results, but at the same time though, it does buy me some breathing time and some space in order to escape and to come up with a different plan. And I can see it too, because it looked like something out of a movie, right? You have a whole swarm of zombies, then boom, they explode and they go flying through the air like something out of Days Gone, which is actually pretty neat if you think about it. So yeah, that's what happens for my activation. Dark Lord Max goes next, so then he decides to activate Red Harvest because that's the only fighter he has left. He actually does double movements to climb all the way to the top of the Metro Terminal in order to buy himself some space and some time to survive as well. And that's where he is, located all by his lonesome. So Warlord Ace goes next. He activates Soldier, but this time he decides to open fire with some choke gas grenades, what he decides to do. So he takes a basic action to aim and takes another action in order to throw his choke gas grenade down directly onto the ghouls that are climbing up the top of the ladder to get to him. And he drops the grenade right in the neck smack in the middle of all three of the ghouls are trying to climb up the ladder, which is actually a pretty good shot on that one. So all three of them get hit with gas grenade, and the gas rules are pretty cool because if you all these guys take toughness checks, if they fail, they all take injury roll dice. And then the most insane thing happened. All three ghouls went directly out of action, which is actually pretty cool to see that. Warlord Ace took all three of his casualty dice, injury dice. He rolled up this beautiful value here with all three skulls. So he got really, really lucky on that one. Managed to kill all three ghouls that are trying to threaten to get to him. So definitely bought him some time to survive. So the rest of the turn is dedicated to Sister Serial, who then decides to double movement with Judge Darko, who actually does both movements over to the base of the ladder there to head up his way up to the fuel tank tower in the center of the battlefield. And she does exactly the same thing with Judge Nock as well, so that way they can both try to climb up that ladder and kind of deal with the soldier who's on the top of the fuel tank tower. And with that pretty much makes up the action phase for this one. Alright, so that takes us right to the end phase, so the Crazed Cannibals get to go next. As you can see in this photo, more Crazed Cannibals arrive on the table. A lot of them start climbing up the catwalk to start heading towards the Metro Terminal on the left-hand side, as you can see on the top of the screen. A few more Cannibals also end up on the walkways as well. The Cannibal that got shot off the bridge by Soldier, he actually gets an out-of-action result, meaning another victory point for 9/11 as well. At the same time, as you can see in the middle of the you kind of see the photo in the background there, more ghouls are starting to swarm towards the fuel tank. On the far bottom left-hand corner of the battlefield as well, on the roof of the double-decker shanty, two more ghouls start climbing up the roof there, so that way they can start making their way towards the Metro Terminal. And in the center of the battlefield, eight ghouls start, 9 ghouls, there we go, start moving their way directly towards the top of the fuel tank tower, heading towards that ladder to deal with the two judges that are right there in the middle of the table. And some more ghouls start making their way towards the triangular tower as well, starting to make their way towards the fuel tank tower because apparently that's where the action is taking place. And some more Crazed Cannibals do the conga line of death, heading directly towards Riptor. As you can see, there's a huge column of ghouls that are going across the catwalks, across the gun march shanty, heading towards Riptor. And like I said, I'm starting to take this cannibal business kind of personally now because all these cannibals are heading directly towards me. And another huge herd of cannibals start moving towards the ground level, trying to cut me off at the same time, right below there on the 5 part as well, which is absolutely terrifying. The good news, though, is that 2 of the ghouls that I shot off the roof of my grenade launcher, they do get out of action results, so because of that, that's me 2 more points as well, which is kind of cool. Now, here's the thing that really sucks. I was thinking I was okay because I had a grenade launcher attached to my bolt gun, so I figured, okay, I'll just open up with another blast of grenade launching firing, right? Well, then I find out that the combo weapon that I'm having, which is the bolt gun combined with the grenade launcher, it only has 1 shot on it, is what it is. A single shot weapon, which means that once I fire my grenade, that's it. There are no more grenades at that point. And I realized, crap, maybe I bought the wrong weapon. Maybe I should have bought a combo flamer instead, because at least I can get more shots off with a combo flamer with a bolt gun instead of a grenade launcher. So that part was kind of sad. And I realized I'm being swarmed. It makes you wish that you had a bunch of grenades right now. If you've ever watched this movie, Serenity, which is a movie by Joss Whedon that was about the Firefly film, there's a scene where there are a group of characters being chased by Reavers, which are these cannibals and spaceships chasing after the main characters in a little cargo mule they're trying to escape. And in that movie, there's a character named Jane who wanted to bring grenades with him on a little heist job they're going to pull, but the captain told him not to do that. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with that series. But anyways, there's a scene in there where Jane is yelling at the captain. He's like, it'd be nice if we had some grenades right now, is what he tells him, because they could use the grenades against the cannibals. And I'm hearing that in my head while this is occurring because, yeah, Jane Cobb is absolutely correct. It'd be really nice if I had some grenades right now, don't you think? And here's another shot on the left-hand side. You can see more swarms of Crazed Cannibals are starting to climb the walkways and try to get towards Red Harvest, who's on the roof of the Metro Terminal, and some more over there on the ground, heading towards the chemical well, which is right in the middle of the battlefield. And a few more Crazed Cannibals also climb to the roof of the Metro Terminal. There's 3 of them right there heading directly towards Red Harvest, which is absolutely terrifying to behold. And with that being said, that pretty much ends this round for this battle report. Alright, so that takes us directly to the end of turn number 3. Here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, more and more crazed cannibals are starting to swarm the battlefield. There's a desperate attempt of escape by the 2 judges trying to climb the ladder directly to where Soldier is located right there in the middle of the table. At the same time, Red Harvest is being swarmed by a couple of ghouls on the roof of the metro terminal, and I'm definitely being attacked by a conga line of flesh-eating death that's heading my way on the top of the screen as well. And that pretty much ends up turn number 3. So with turn 3 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and we roll off for initiative to see who goes first. So this is the top of turn number 4, and once again, Dark Lord Matt gets the initiative on this one, so he gets priority, and the first thing he decides to do is open fire with his long rifle. He decides to use his fast shot ability. He actually puts 2 of those ghouls serious injuries on those guys as well, which is actually pretty good for him, which is pretty awesome. So now he only has to deal with 1 ghoul there on the rooftop to fight against. And then comes my next activation, and I decide to run, because there's no way I'm going to take on all those ghouls by myself, not with that huge line of them that are trying to swarm at me at 2 different sides. So I use my drop rig in order to drop down to the ground, so I lose no penalty for movement there, and I do a double movement to climb to the top of the ladder, up to the top of the little crow's nest, right above the chemical pit. I picked that spot because you can only really put 2 fighters on the top of that crow's nest at a time, so it kind of does put a reverse slope defense on my opponents. That means the cannibals can only come at me from the ground level, climbing up the ladder. Kind of like what's going on with the other guys on the top of the fuel tower. So hopefully I can just last the entirety of the game by just kind of staying on the top of the crow's nest and fight that way. That is the scheme, that is the plan I'm kind of going with on this one for the most part. Alright, so that takes directly to the next turn. This time actually goes with Sister Serial. Now, the funny thing is that Sister Serial, as well as Warlord Ace, they're actually married in real life. They're a couple, and so they kind of make a lover's deal because they're both married. Sister Serial begs her husband to let her fighters at the top of the the tower with her. The way she figures it is that they can kind of have an alliance, and the 2 of them can survive with their fighters on the top of the Temple Tower, because 3 against the whole horde of cannibals coming their way is better than just 1 fighter at the same time. So Warlord Ace decides to agree. He's really getting the points of the lead at this point, and so he decides to let his wife's fighters get at the top. So as you can see there, Judge Darko, he actually makes it all the way to the top of the walkway. Warlord Ace then goes next. He opens fire with his choke gas grenades down the swarm beneath him, but unfortunately for him though, the mist is shot with that one and it scatters and doesn't really cause anything for the most part. And for the last turn, of course, the very last activation, Sister Serial then moves up Judge Nock, who also climbs at the top of the tower to join up with Sister Serial, with Warlord Ace's Soldier. So because of that, Judge Drake, Judge Nock, as well as Soldier are working together as an alliance to fight against all the zombies that are coming their way. And with that being said, that takes directly to the end phase. Alright, so it takes directly to the end phase, so the crazed cannibals get to go next. As you can see there, a huge herd of ghouls are starting to make their way towards the roof of the metro terminal because they're trying to get at Red Harvest. And at the same time, another huge wave of crazed cannibals start making their way to the base of the fuel tower because they're going to try to climb up those ladders to deal with the members of the fighters from the top of the fuel cell. And 3 ghouls also managed to swarm to the top of the tower as well, engaging Judge Nock, Judge Darko, as well as Soldier in close combat. Unfortunately for the ghouls, though, they all failed their roles, so because of that, not much combat is taking place for the most part, and these guys are still engaged in close combat as well. Meanwhile, on the top of the battlefield, as you see here, more ghouls start arriving and start making their way towards the fuel tank, and another huge wave started going along the catwalk, heading directly towards Riptor, which is kind of sad. And as you can see in this photo, more ghouls start making their way towards the ladder to deal with Riptor. Like I said, it's starting to take it kind of personally at this point because it's all these ghouls are coming directly towards my fighter. Luckily for me, though, I'm on the top of that crow's nest, so only 1 ghoul can come at me at a time, which is kind of nice. And in fact, one of the ghouls actually charges up the ladder directly into Riptor, engaging my leader in close combat. Unfortunately for that ghoul, though, Riptor is a Cawdor gang leader, which means that he is meant for scrapping and for fighting. He's packing a reclaimed auto pistol as well as a chainsword, so because that, I had no problem whatsoever just deep sixing that ghoul and ending myself another point, which is pretty awesome as well. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of the battle, you can see here the ghouls start making their way up the catwalk, heading directly towards Red Harvest. One group of them lands up on the first level of the catwalk, while another huge herd lands up on the second level of the catwalk, and all of them are kind of scooting to the right-hand side in order to try to engage Red Harvest. And I feel kind of bad for Red Harvest because while he is on above the ground in a tower-type situation, the top of the roof is very big, so that way he can still be swarmed. And to help illustrate that point, as you can see in this photo, 2 ghouls start swarming directly and charge directly into Red Harvest, engaging him in close combat, so that part's kind of rough. Unfortunately for Red Harvest, though, he does take a wound for his trouble, so that part's kind of sad, but he does manage to stove in the head of one of the ghouls with his maul, puts him directly out of action, and he's still currently engaged with the second ghoul as well. So things are not looking very good for Red Harvest at this point. And with that takes directly to the end of turn number 4, and here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, more and more ghouls are starting to swarm the fighters that are located, all of us are located on the top of elevated structures. Red Harvest is not in a good place, because you can see there he has no real exit strategy to escape that tower. At the same time, more and more ghouls are going after him. The ones who have actually the best chance of survival are my character Riptor, who's on the top of the crow's nest of the chemical pit. At the same time, the 3 fighters are right on top of the fuel cell there, fighting their ghouls as well. So with the end of turn number 4, we take us directly to turn number 5, and we roll off for priority as C goes first. So that takes directly to turn number 5, and I managed to get the priority on this one, so that was kind of nice. Riptor goes first, and the first thing he does is he actually takes aim with his bolt gun and opens fires on 2 of the ghouls who are right below him. I actually got 3 shots off, which is kind of cool. I put serious injury on 2 of those ghouls. The third one kind of just kind of didn't cause any injuries whatsoever, just kind of missed. So because that kind of gives me some more breathing space in order to deal with these ghouls. And so far, I'm liking my odds of where I'm located at. I'm thinking I picked a good position to kind of survive in at this point. And unfortunately for Red Harvest, he flubs his attack rolls against the ghoul that's engaged in the close combat, which is a really bad place for him to be in, because he could be easily swarmed if he's not careful. So Red Harvest is still engaged with that ghoul at the same time. And the rest of the turn is dedicated for Sister Serial, Precinct 13, as well as Warlord Ace of 911. Soldier does manage to put a out of action result on one of the ghouls, managed to shoot him in the head with one of his last pistols, so that part is kind of cool. Unfortunately for Sister Stereo, though, Judge Darko as well as Judge Nock, they failed their combat rolls, so they're still engaged in close combat with the ghouls. And that pretty much makes up the action phase for this one. So with that takes us directly to the end phase, and the Crazed Cannibals get to go next. And as you can see, some more Crazed Cannibals end up showing up on the bottom of the table here. At the same time, they start swarming like a tidal wave directly to the roof of the MTI Metro Terminal. And as you can see in this photo, just a huge herd of these things just start surrounding Red Harvest as well. And he is completely enveloped. I think he's fighting like 4 or 5 ghouls all at the same time. They start to charge directly to him, and then even more ghouls are along the way as well. As you can see in that photo, those 2 ghouls over there on the left-hand side that are face down, both those guys got out of action results, so that's 2 additional points for Section 8 at this point. And then disaster strikes for Red Harvest. He just got swarmed by just too many ghouls. So because of that, he does go out of action. Unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, his participation in the scenario is over with, and Red Harvest suffers a grievous injury as well. So yeah, things are not looking very good right now. Meanwhile, a bunch of ghouls start swarming the base of the fuel tower, heading their way up the ladder, trying to engage the 3 fighters on the top of the fuel tower. And at the same time, another ghoul charges up the ladder as well to engage a soldier in close combat as well. So that part's pretty sad. Unfortunately for these fighters, though, not much really happened. The ghouls are still engaged in close combat with both Judge Darko as well as Soldier. However, Judge Nock did manage to knock off one of the ghouls, hitting him with a maul, actually. He actually did manage to hit him as well. And unfortunately for that ghoul, he failed his initiative test, so he goes plummeting to the earth like a meteor. And he goes crashing to the ground, and he also suffers an out-of-action result because the sheer drop of that fall. So because of that, he just gets kind of splats on the ground and just turns into red paste at this point. And in this photo, if you notice, there's a bunch of ghouls laying on the ground that are basically seriously injured, as well as 1 out cold result. Now, if you're wondering what the situation with that is, what ended up happening is that one of the ghouls, once again, charged directly into Riptor on the top of the crow's nest. I did manage to kill that ghoul, and at the same time, though, that ghoul did manage to cause one of the wounds on my characters. So Riptor takes a wound for his trouble, which is kind of sad because he's about halfway dead. But then what ends up happening is that the ghouls start jumping. I'm not joking here. They start jumping from the catwalk that's behind the crow's nest, because apparently you can fit a ghoul right behind my fighter. I did not realize that. But this one guy actually tries to jump, and he fails, and then he falls over the other side. As you can see, there's a bunch of ghouls who are just dropping dead on the other side of the thing, because I think 4 or 5 ghouls tried to leap, and all of them failed. And so a lot of them are seriously injured, and 1 got out of action result. And now I realize that my little crow's nest is not as safe as I thought it was, because now I can be attacked from 2 different directions, which is pretty terrifying, all things considered. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 5, and you can see here the ghouls are now starting to swarm everything and anything they can get their hands on. And I can see right there in the photo on the top, you can see the 3 fighters there for Sister Sarah and Warlord Ace at the top of the fuel cell. They're fighting together. There's my character there in the center of the battlefield on the top of the crow's nest. If you look right beneath the crow's nest, there's like 4 or 5 ghouls on the ground who try to jump the gap to go after my character because that's how bad they're trying to kill me. And so I'm really realizing now that maybe this crow's nest is not the best thing to hide out from. So I'm going to have to make some really difficult choices here pretty quick. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 6, and I managed to get the initiative on this one. So what I decided to do is scoot back a little bit is what I decided to do. So by scooting back like this, what I do is I kind of make sure that the ghouls really can't get to me. At least I hope so anyways. So that way they can't jump from that tower to come at me as well. At the same time, I decided to open fire with my bolt gun, but unfortunately for me though, I flood my rolls and I missed all my shots. So that part was kind of sad. Meanwhile, this is a group activation of Precinct 13 as well as 9/11, just taking turns helping each other out. Judge Nock does charge directly into the ghoul that's engaged with Soldier, but unfortunately for them though, all these fighters failed their flub, their rolls, and they weren't able to cause any injuries on these ghouls. At the same time, the ghouls did exactly nothing back. So because of that, they're still kind of stuck in a melee there on the top of the screen. And that pretty much ends up turn number 6 for this one. So that takes directly to the top of the bottom of the end phase for turn number 6, and for the crazed cannibals, as you can see, a lot of them now are starting to leave the roof of the metro terminal, heading down to the catwalk, swarming towards my guys of all things, and heading towards my guy, as crazy as it may sound. And at the same time, some more ghouls are starting to climb the walkway, starting to make their way towards the fuel tower. Even more ghouls start showing up in the bottom of the battlefield, making their way towards the fuel tank tower, trying to climb up that ladder and trying to engage the 3 fighters at the top of the fuel cells. In fact, another ghoul does charge up the ladder to go directly into Judge Nock and engage in close combat. He does manage to put a flesh wound on a Judge Nock, so because of that he is now toughness 2, but Judge Nock, to his credit, manages to take out that fighter as well. And once again, the same thing kind of happened. He knocked that guy in the head with his maul, the ghoul fell off the tower, and he crashes down to the earth and, suffers an out of action result. We just kind of left the guy up there just because we didn't want to take another photo of them, on the ground, because we're trying to save some time here. And as you can see on the bottom of the screen, more ghouls start appearing on the top of the battlefield, heading directly up that ladder to deal with Riptor. So, yeah, I got, what is it? I'm just guessing here, 20 ghouls? 20 ghouls are trying to eat me from the bottom of the ground, trying to climb up that ladder and fight my leader. So that's kind of scary. And more ghouls start making their way along the catwalk there, and it looks like that they're going to try to jump the gap again and try to go after my character. We actually did a little measurement of the bases, and actually the ghouls can actually go one base at a time directly into that catwalk right behind me if they want to. So now I'm realizing that I've made a huge tactical error in my judgment to go on the top of this crow's nest. So in this photo, another ghoul tries to charge into Riptor, and of course Riptor has no problem putting that ghoul out of action, and you can see in the bottom of the screen there, right behind the tower, there's some more ghouls who plummeted to their death trying to jump the gap and trying to go directly into my crow's nest. So I'm realizing now that I gotta leave. I gotta do something quick. Either I gotta leave here somehow, use my drop rig to get on the ground to escape, or I gotta jump, or I gotta do something, because staying here is no longer an option for my fighter. And even if Riptor doesn't make it this round, I have to put my hat off to him. This leader is awesome. He's been taking on so many ghouls all by himself. He is definitely the best fighter in my gang at this point. Alright, so that takes directly to the end of turn number 6, and here's an overhead shot of the battlefield. As you can see, more and more ghouls are starting to swarm towards my character, as well as the 3 fighters on the top of the fuel cell, and things are not looking very good for my gang anyways. The little alliance of the Precinct 13 and 9/11 guys, that's working out pretty good for them, but yeah, things for me though are not going too well. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 7, and Vast Van Saar managed to get the initiative on this one, so Warlord Ace goes first. He directs his attacks directly into the ghoul that's currently engaged in the close combat. Unfortunately for him, though, he just kind of fails his attack, not much happens. Judge Darko, Sister Sarah then goes next after him, so because that Judge Darko actually managed to put a serious injury on one of the ghouls that was attacking him, so that part's kind of nice. And Judge Nock, he does try to assist Soldier against that one ghoul he's facing against, but unfortunately for him, though, he failed his attacks. So both Sister Serial as well as Warlord Ace were actually doing pretty good for themselves, staying on the top of the tower like they're doing. I, on the other hand, decide to heli on and just get the heck out of there. As you can see in this photo, I decide to make a leap for it. I take a jump from the crow's nest directly into the first floor of the Tower of Terror, and I actually made the distance. I have initiative of 4, so I don't have the best initiative, but when I rolled, I rolled at a perfect 6, so that part was awesome. So I go leaping across the gap directly into the first floor of the Tower of Terror, and then of course I spend another simple action to move over to the catwalk, trying to escape these zombies that are trying to swarm me, because my plan now is just to run. I'm just going to try to run and survive the next 2 turns if I'm able to, and shoot if I have to, fight if I must, but I'm just going to run the entire time. Hopefully I can just run around in circles and just try to survive for the best I can. I'm using rule number 1 from Zombieland, which is cardio, and I'm running for it. So with that takes directly to the end phase, and because of the crazed cannibals goes next. As you can see here, more cannibals start swarming the base of the fuel tower, making their way up the ladder one by one in order to engage the fighters at the top of it. As you can see in this photo, another zombie gets to the top of the tower as well, that engages with Judge Knock in close combat. Managed to put another flesh wound on a Judge Knock as well, so because of that guy has only toughness 1 now. If he suffers another flesh wound, he'll automatically go out of action. Judge Knock, of course, did try to counterattack against this ghoul, but unfortunately for him, though, he failed his attack, so not much really happens there. Meanwhile, at the top of the screen, more zombies start heading towards my way. Once I decide to jump the gap and to run, as you can see here, more zombies start swarming off to try to cut me off. A bunch of them spend double movements to climb to the top of the catwalk there, try to intercept me and try to go after my character. At the same time, more ghouls climb up the ladder to the left-hand side to get to the roof of the gun mart shanty to try to cut my exit off that way. And then the ghouls on the ground start maneuvering towards the catwalk, heading towards me like a giant tidal wave of flesh-eating goodness. And at the same time, a huge column of ghouls start moving along the catwalks of the second floor, directly the second floor of the Tower of Terror, and they're moving directly towards my character at the same time, trying to chase down Riptor, and that's just absolutely terrifying, as you can see in this photo. Like I said, I'm starting to feel kind of personal about all this, all these zombies trying to kill me at the same time. But I'm joking, it's actually pretty cool. It's just hilarious seeing this happen because it's kind of neat. It's like something out of World War Z or something. And that takes directly to the end of turn number 7. So here's an overhead shot of the battlefield. More ghouls are trying to climb the tower to kind of go after the 3 fighters in the fuel cell through attrition. And a huge tidal wave of undeath is starting to chase my character as I try to run the gauntlet and try to survive as long as I can. So that being said, that ends turn number 7. We go directly to the top of turn number 8 and we roll off for priority to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 8, and Sister Cyril gets to go first for once. She gets the priority on this one. So because of that, she decides to attack, of course. Unfortunately for her, though, she failed her attack with Judge Knock. Judge Knock gets activated first, and he tries to attack the ghoul, but unfortunately for him, though, he just kind of failed his rolls for the most part. I get to go next for my next activation. The only thing I do is I do 2 simple actions in order to move across the catwalks as quickly as I can, and I make my way right past all the ghouls, up the little boardwalk, up to the next catwalk in order to survive as well. And I'm realizing that maybe I might not make it because ghouls from that shanty town, the gun mart shanty, can go up their walkway and cut me off at the pass, or the ghouls from behind me can swarm at me and charge me. It's just a bad situation all around. At the same time, as you can see here, the my friend Warlord Ace gets to go next. He decides to attack the ghoul that's dealing with him, manages to flip his rolls because that ghoul is still engaged in close combat. And then for the last activation, Sister Cyril activates Judge Darko, puts a coup de grace on that ghoul that he was facing with earlier, and also nets herself another point, a victory point as well, for taking out that ghoul. And that pretty much makes up the action phase on this one. So, with that, we go directly to the end phase, and the Crazed Cannibals goes next. Luckily for my friends, though, because Judge Darko kind of finished off that last ghoul, there's no more room for the ghouls to charge up the gangplanks, getting towards them. So because of that, these 2 ghouls do try attack against Soldier as well as Judge Knock accordingly, but unfortunately for those ghouls, though, they fail their attacks, and nothing much really happens there. Meanwhile, on the top of the screen, more ghouls start swarming me and trying to cut off my escape. As you can see, we have that conga line of death that go across the catwalk there from the gun mart shanty to the tower there in the bottom right hand corner. As you can see, they're kind of cutting me off at the pass, so that way I can't escape that direction. And at the same time, all these ghouls start charging up behind me as well. In fact, 2 of them actually do charge directly into Riptor. And as you can see in this photo, this looks like something out of Days Gone, the video game. As you can see there, a huge line of ghouls are along those catwalks trying to swarm after Riptor as well. And Riptor right now is currently engaged with 2 of those ghouls who attack him at the same time. So that is absolutely terrifying. Luckily for me, though, the ghouls flubbed their attacks, even with the additional +1 to hit because I'm outnumbered and they're actually causing interference. So I actually got pretty lucky on that part. None of their attacks actually landed, so that part was awesome. They did manage to, actually, I take that back. 1 ghoul did manage to hit me, and he actually managed to wound me as well, but luckily for me, though, I passed my armor save with my mesh armor, so nothing much comes of it. Of course, Riptor gets a counterattack as well, and I put serious injuries on both of those ghouls and managed to knock them down, so that part was pretty epic. And finally, here's another close-up of the wave of ghouls are jumping down from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor of the Tower of Terror in order to engage Riptor as well. Just more and more zombies just stacking up and going at it. Alright, so that takes directly to the end of turn number 8, and as you can see in this photo, all these ghouls are still swarming. Another series of ghouls are swarming up the tower, heading towards Sister Serial, as well as Warlord Ace's fighters in the top of the fuel tower, and I got 2 columns of ghouls trying to surround my one character on the top of the table there, who's trying to survive as best as he can. And that pretty much makes up turn number 8. So with turn number 8 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 9, and we roll off for our priority to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 9, and I managed to get the initiative on this one, which is pretty awesome as well. And for my activation, I just do 2 simple movements as well. I use my drop rig in order to drop down to the top of the little, the little shipping container that's right over there for the AMH shipping company. I then use my drop rig again to drop down another level, and then I spend the rest of my movement phase moving towards that tower in order to escape. Because if I can just survive this round without being swarmed by ghouls, I'll get myself some reputation points as well as some experience points. Just hoping that none of the ghouls manage to get in close combat with me. That's the only thing I'm trying to do at this point. And then betrayal occurs here for the next turn. Sister Serial goes next, and she decides to attack Warlord Ace is what she decides to do. Which is actually pretty heartbreaking if you think about it. And very much like a zombie type film move. Sister Serial decides to stab her husband's character in the back. Is what she decides to do. She actually attacks with she decides to attack with Judge Darko. Judge Darko actually attacks Soldier, so because of that, he actually goes out of action, being hit in the back of the head with a maul, which is pretty horrible. And when we roll off for the injury to see what happened, because it's just poetic justice, he rolled out the lessons learned injury. The lessons learned injury, which means that he also earns himself D3 additional experience points. Now he does get 3 additional experience points, which is kind of nice, and he goes into recovery. But it's just kind of poetic, right? Warlord Ace, who's Sister Serial's husband in real life, he lets her come up to the top of the tower, and kind of like a goodwill gesture thing, and then she stabs him in the back at the last minute. I'm sorry, that's just too funny as far as I'm concerned. So Warlord Ace is like, "Oh my God, are you serious?" He was so upset. It was just so funny watching that take place. We were all laughing about it because that's very much a zombie apocalypse type thing that you should do. So because of that, Judge Darko gets another point of experience for taking out a soldier. At the same time, Sister Serial's Judge Nox managed to take out that last zombie she was fighting against in close combat, so because of that, he goes out of action, and just like that, the last 2 members surviving on the top of that tower are the Precinct 13 Enforcers. So with that takes directly to the end phase with the Crazed Cannibals. You can see here the Crazed Cannibals start moving up towards that walkway again, start sending up more fighters up the ladders in order to engage the Precinct 13 Enforcers, but nothing much happens from there because, this turn is the last turn of the battle report. And here's a photo of more of the ghouls who are dropping down from the 2nd level of the Tower of the Terror onto the catwalk, making their way towards Riptor. So that part is pretty crazy, but like I said, it's the last turn, so not much there. And here's the last shot, which is pretty epic as well. All these ghouls start trying to come after me, but luckily for me, though, they just couldn't close a distance engagement in close combat, so I managed to survive to the bitter end. But at the same time, though, it's raining cannibals. Hallelujah. As you can see here, all these ghouls are just jumping off the ledges and trying to make their way towards Riptor. But like I said, it's the end of the game, so I don't have to worry about it, which is pretty awesome. So that takes directly to the end of the game, with Precinct 13 getting the win on this one as well. When it was all said and done, we had to actually total up the number of zombies that were killed. What ended up happening is that the Enforcers managed to kill 9 zombies, earning themselves 9 victory points, and I only managed to kill 8, so I lost this by 1 point. But at the same time, though, I can't complain. I survived. I didn't stab my spouse in the back in order to do it either, so it all works out for the best. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, so now it's time for the post game. First of all, we're going to start with Section 8. For their injuries, they suffered 3 injuries. That was Red Harvest, Pig Killer, as well as Hacksaw Harry. Red Harvest suffered a grievous injury, while Pig Killer suffered a humiliating injury, losing 1 point to his leadership and as well as his cool. And then Hacksaw Harry got an alcohol result. For the advancements, Red Harvest actually leveled up from level 4 all the way up to level 6, earning +1 to his weapon skill as well as +1 to his cool, while Pig Killer leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his movement. From his territories, Dark Lord Mac earned 1 point reputation from his settlement as well as 20 credits, and from his Needle Ways he doesn't get anything from it because all he gets is special deployment. Now he did lose a territory because he lost this scenario, in which case he lost his Wasteland territory, which is totally worthless, but it goes to Precinct 13, so Precinct 13 managed to get themselves one of the territories from Section 8. In the merchant phase, he earned up 20 credits from his settlement, and he decided to put all 20 of his credits directly into his stash. For his reputation, he earns 1 point of reputation from his settlement, as well as 1 point of reputation from fighting against Precinct 13 for the very first time, getting him a grand total of 26 points of reputation in total. His new record now is at 5 wins, as well as 5 losses, and his new rank is at 2,790 points. Now then, for 9/11, Warlord Ace did lose 2 of his fighters, Tugs and Soldier. Tugs got an out cold result, so because that makes full recovery no problem, while Soldier suffered a lessons learned injury, getting +3 to his experience as well, and he goes directly into recovery because he has learned the lesson that he will never trust Precinct 13 Enforcers ever again. At the same time, Soldier did level up to level 3, so he got +1 to his toughness, so because of that, he is now toughness 4, which means that he'll be harder to kill if someone decides to stab him in the back by betraying him in the middle of a scenario. From his territories, from his settlement, he earned 1 point of reputation from his settlement, as well as recruited a brand new juvie named Dozer. He also earned 60 credits from that. He also gets nothing from his corpse farm because nobody died. He earns his 3, of course, choke gas grenades from his sludge sea. From his gambling den, he earned another point of reputation from that, and also he earned 20 credits from that gambling den as well. He actually betted on diamonds this time around, as he decided to do. So when we drew the card to see what he got the 2 diamonds, so getting him +20 credits. So that part is pretty awesome as well. Now, he did lose his bone shrine to Precinct 13 because, once again, he got defeated on that one. However, though, he gained a brand new piece of territory, if you can believe it. Sister Serial felt bad for stabbing her husband in the back, so she gifted him and granted the territory, the fighting pit that she took from my gang. So because of that, Warlord Ace is now packing a fighting pit in his new territory as well. So because of that, he will be able to bring in 2 hive scum wherever he wants. Those 2 hive scum are Dromos and Squee. Dromos is packing a chain glaive, while Squee is packing a plasma pistol as well as an auto pistol. So kind of like a consolation prize for betrayal and backstabbing, all that kind of stuff. For the merchant phase, he recruited a brand new ganger named Tank and equipped him with a body glove as well as a last gun, as well as purchased a last pistol for his brand new juvie named Dozer. For reputation, earns 1 point of reputation from his settlement, as well as 1 point of reputation from fighting against the jury for the very first time, bringing his grand total of 25 points. His new record now is at 4 wins as well as 3 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 2,690 points. Up next to the jury, I didn't suffer any injuries because my 1 fighter actually made it to the very end. Riptor also leveled up to level 4. He gained a lot of experience on this one from all the out-of-action results he was giving out, as well as surviving to the end of the game. Because of that, I gave him an upgrade of +1 to his wounds, so because of that, now he's now having 3 wounds, so he's much harder to kill now. For my territories, from settlement number 1, I earned 1 point of reputation as well as 40 credits, and I also recruited a brand new ganger named Johnny, which is actually pretty cool as well. Rolled 2 6s on that one. From my old ruins, I earned 10 credits. From my slag furnace, I earned 30 credits. And from my settlement number 2, I earned an additional point of reputation as well as 60 credits. And unfortunately, since I lost this battle report, I lost my fighting pit, which Sister Serial then took my fighting pit and granted it to her husband, Warlord Ace, for her betrayal, which is actually kind of cool. During the merchant, I earned 140 credits from my territory as well as 15 credits from my stash, earning me a grand total of 155 credits. With my credits, I purchased a plasma gun, a maul, as well as a stub gun with dum-dum bullets for Johnny. I then purchased frag grenades for Reptile, and I placed my 5 remaining credits into the stash. For reputation, I earned 2 points of reputation from the settlements, as well as 2 points of reputation from surviving the scenario, which is actually kind of cool, as well as 1 point of additional reputation for fighting against 9/11 for the very first time, bringing my grand total to 31 points of reputation. My new record now is at 5 wins as well as 2 losses, and my new gang rating now is at 2,350 points. And finally, we go to the winners of this scenario, the Palanite Enforcers of Precinct 13. Sister Serial did suffer 1 injury. That was Judge Drake. He earned a grievous injury, so he goes directly into recovery. Meanwhile, Judge Darko leveled up to level 3, and Judge Knock leveled up to level 2, and both of those Enforcers actually got +1 to their toughness, so now both those guys are toughness 4, which is really good. From her Palanite Precinct, Sister Serial earned 60 credits as well as 1 point of reputation, and she captured 3 territories. She captured the Wastes from Section 8, which she policed up and earned 2 points of reputation for that. She also captured a bone shrine from 9/11, and she policed that territory as well, earning 2 more points of reputation. And then for the fighting pit that she earned from me, captured from me, she granted that territory to Warlord Ace to say mea culpa for betraying at the last second. So that part was kind of funny. So it's kind of a cool little consolation prize, I suppose. In the merchant phase, she earned 60 credits from her territory. She purchased frag grenades for both Judge Darko as well as Judge Anderson. For reputation, she earned 3 points reputation from surviving the scenario, as well as 1 point reputation from fighting against Section 8 for the very first time, and she also earned 5 points reputation for the territories that she controls, bringing her grand total to 30 points of reputation in total. Her new record now is at 4 wins as well as 3 losses, and her new gang rating is at 2,265 points. So that's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news relating to this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.